what we wanted to do today was introduce you to this series of 9 mini webinars here on Facebook in the Changemakers Network, which is our charitable arm of the Changemaker Group. We're here to support you, help you to tackle change and thrive on it in whatever circumstances you find yourself. So we wanted to put this little series on to help people, because we were getting lots of requests and comments from people saying, you know, how should I, as someone who's trying to help others as well as look after myself, how should I be feeling right now? How should I be acting and working? And so that's why we've put this series on, to support all of the people in this network. Please invite your friends to join the network if you think that this will help them. And we'll grow this together, and we'll become a network that will basically change the world if we can all tap into our resourcefulness and make this a really great place to be. So the series is going to be 9 of these webinars. This is the first one. Then we kick off this afternoon with Zarina O'Donnell, one of our great change makers in the group. And then we'll continue on. We've got 2 on Friday, 2 next Monday, 2 the following Wednesday, and then 1 next Friday morning again, which is David and Kathy just summarizing and reviewing everything that's gone on in the week before. So that's the plan. I'm just checking the comments over here. Looks like people are saying we're on and live, so we're all ready to go. So 9 of them. Please come back here at 3 o'clock this afternoon to hear the first of the 7 sessions just about something called the unwanted change curve. Now, there are, hi Lynn, hi Vanda, hi Lucy. So we've got a few people just saying hi in the chat. Please put your questions there. If you have any questions about this whole process of change that we're going to talk about, how it might be affecting you, by all means put them in there. Once I've finished describing the unwanted change curve, I'll be picking up your questions at that point and just talking them through. And what we want you to do ahead of the following sessions is, if there's a specific part of the unwanted change curve that I'm going to describe, there's a part of that you want to discuss in a bit more detail, by all means pop your questions in here in the Changemakers Network, and the relevant changemaker will pick those up and answer them at the time. But each time we're doing these, they are live sessions, so you can ask questions live and you can drop a comment in there. Hello, Nikki. But they will also stay on the page as well. They'll be here for you to look at, even if you don't make the live session. Okay, let me introduce you to a diagram that is also on this page already. We've been doing some background data research on this over the last few weeks to try to understand where people are at. So I'm going to cover my face, which is a blessing straight in itself, and show you the unwanted change curve. So what you'll see is basically the curve starts over on the left with shock. And what we're looking at is 2 axes, morale and productivity. And on the bottom, we're looking at time. The curve would lead you to believe that this is purely going in one direction, from left to right, in typical way that we read information. However, as I'll describe in a minute, we actually move back and forth on this curve. Right? But let me just tell you a little bit more about it then. So shock is what happens when we first hear about something that we don't necessarily want in our lives. So if you think about this particular pandemic that the world is experiencing currently, when the first news started to come out about that, it was a shock. Crikey, all these people are dying. We don't seem to have a vaccine to cope with this. But then it's a typical human reaction, if you like, to not necessarily believe all of the worst case scenario information that we're hearing. we're looking for evidence that it isn't true. We don't want it to be true because it's unwanted change. And you can apply this obviously to other aspects of your life and other things that you're doing. If you don't want something to happen, you're keen to find evidence that maybe it isn't happening the way people are talking about. And we go into denial. So this is the point at which, here on Facebook, you would have seen people posting contrary points, looking for evidence that maybe this isn't as bad as it's going to be. Even political leaders, you'll remember saying initially, well, don't worry, we've got it all under control. And there's an element of denial in that behavior. But of course, as the change continues and we're not able to necessarily control it, that's when the frustration starts to kick in and people recognize that things are different and there is danger. And that can sometimes, work itself out in terms of anger. And other times it can literally just be, just that sheer sense of frustration. I can't believe this is happening when I've got all these other plans in place, all these other things I want to do right now. And individually, that's how people start to feel. But the longer that goes on, of course, it can lead to a sense of depression. And as it says on the diagram, that can be low mood. It can be anxiety, generally feeling like we're lacking in energy and struggling to cope with everything that's going on. If we stay there, of course, then, well, rather the longer we stay there, the more helpless we feel and the more challenging life becomes. So as we will discover in this series, as the individual change makers describe each of these phases in more detail and give you some top tips for working your way through them, you'll find that actually, God, my arm's drifting while I'm speaking, I'm noticing. You'll find that, there are ways of getting around this. And as change makers, our job, if you like, is to get to acceptance, at least as quickly as possible, where acceptance is, being in the present, not worrying about the past, not getting anxious about the future, just acknowledging how things are. And that enables us. So it's a very empowering belief structure to have, because it enables us to then start experimenting. And for those of you who've been using new tools to you, like Zoom and House Party and all the others pieces of technology that are out there, you will have seen opportunities to try some new things out. I was on a quiz last night with some people, and in their family is split across 2 continents, and I suspect they haven't spoken to each other as often and seen each other's faces using the webcam technology that's available. I bet they haven't done that as much as they have in recent weeks for years. So basically that's the experimental phase, where people are, because they're now accepting that things have changed, they try and experiment. And then eventually we get to a point where something we've called the new normal on this curve emerges. Is a commitment to life on new terms. And that's the bit that myself and Zarina will be talking about next Wednesday afternoon, because that's the bit that all organizations right now are wondering exactly what that's going to be. But for us as individuals, we're equally concerned about what that might mean. What type of world will we be living in? What will become the new normal for us? Now, the bit that I wanted to stress for in this little workshop is the fact that this isn't a straightforward case of we go from shock to denial to frustration to depression to acceptance to experiment and on to new normal. What actually happens is we maybe feel like we're accepting the circumstances and we may try some things out, but then we might get a little knock. Something might happen. Maybe someone in the family falls ill. Maybe there's some news that hits us badly, or maybe something changes in the rest of our lives, maybe at work or maybe in our family situation. And all of a sudden we can find ourselves back at the point of frustration. Hopefully it's more frustration than depression, but we can find ourselves feeling low on energy, feeling like, this is a really depressing situation that we're finding ourselves in. So I just wanted to highlight that movement that can happen between, from one end of the curve to the other. So in the survey that we've been running over the last few weeks, we've noticed that initially there was a bit of movement from frustration and depression over to the right-hand side, and people starting to come out the other end. But what we've noticed in the last week or so is that quite a number of people who previously said, although we can't identify individuals, but when looking at the numbers, the number of people who were saying this is going, we're starting to emerge from this, actually the numbers of people finding themselves feeling frustrated and even moving towards depression was increasing too. So that's one of those things that we have to recognize in the moment, that we're not necessarily always going to feel like it's one straight line and we're on our way to the new normal. There will be times when this doesn't feel great for us, and that we will feel a bit of a setback. What we're here to do over the next week and a half is to help you, whichever phase you find yourself. We'll have some top tips on how to move forward. And there is something empowering in that sense of being able to move forward that will really help you to get to that point in your life where you can not just accept the change, but you can start to thrive on it. And that's what we really hope for you in this time, these incredibly unprecedented times. The volume of change that we're actually living through right now is totally unprecedented. We've never had to experience this in our lives before. However, as a group of experienced change makers, and hopefully to empower you to support the people in your lives, we know what it takes to move through this curve. And that's why we've been doing the research to see how people are feeling, because we know how to get from a position of denial and frustration to a point where you can start to accept it and move on to a better place. So that's what this workshop is going to be all about over the next 7 sessions. You'll hear from some great experts who've worked with organizations, and they've coached senior people in organizations as well as helped community groups. We do a lot of work with charities, trying to build in this type of thinking and help them cope with whatever change comes our way. So this is, as I say, we've called it the unwanted change curve, because there's some change that we're actually very good at dealing with. If somebody offers you a new piece of technology, a new phone, or an opportunity to do something that you've never done before that looks really good fun and a great opportunity, then we're very open to working on that. Unwanted change is different, and we have to look after ourselves. And in the process, we'll then be stronger to help other people. So within our group, we've done a lot of work over the last few weeks to get onto group calls, to talk to each other, support each other as much as possible, and just let each other know that we're here for each other. And that inspired us to want to get into this network with you today and over the next week and a half, to let you know that we're here to support you too. Whatever questions you have, whatever issues you're dealing with right now, this is what the group is for. We've kicked off a mentoring scheme within the network here. If you're looking for somebody who can mentor you and help you, put up that request. Similarly, if you want to help and mentor someone else, you can absolutely do that. You don't have to be a member of the Changemaker group to do that. Anybody in this network that feels they can help and support others can volunteer to be part of that process. So hopefully what we will see over the next week and a half is a sense of mutual support, recognizing that we're here for each other and that we literally are all in this together and we can help. So that's what the sessions are going to be all about. I'm just going to take a look down to my left and see if there's any questions there. So I'm going to pause for 30 seconds. If you have a question, put it in there now. But I'll just go and have a quick review, see what we've got going on over here. Okay, so I see. Oh, hi, Louise. Hi, Nikki. Hi, Jerry. Good to see you, mate. Hope all's well. So we've got a link in the chat to the survey. If you haven't as yet filled in the survey this week, go and click on that link now, and you can tell us how you're feeling. And we will come. We report the results of that on a weekly basis, so you can see the growing picture by looking back through the trail. Okay, Nikki, having gone through the last few weeks, have you seen a general move forwards, accepting that we're all on different journeys? I think there's judging by the data, and also in conversations with our clients, we are seeing a broad acceptance that things have changed. On individual basis, we're finding people are going back and forth, but recognizing when they are in teams or they're in groups or they're in networks like this, that there's always somebody around who can help. So, we are finding people moving towards acceptance and beyond, and experimenting. I mean, this is going to be, there's going to be an incredible impact on the world of work, using tools like this, using things like Zoom and Teams and all the other webcam-based tools that we have. Organizations are seeing huge opportunities in this, as well as real struggles with how do we maintain the team morale? How do we knit together different parts of our teams and our communities so that they can communicate really well? So there's going to be massive change way beyond the lockdowns and the social distancing that we are going to be experiencing for a little while longer, certainly here in the UK, but I know that's going on across the world. So we are seeing movement in terms of groups of people starting to accept, starting to experiment, but we're also seeing an increase in need for people to have that open-minded approach and empathy, if you like, for people who need some extra support to keep them going. Okay, what else have we got here? Louise Robbins, rather like Kubler-Ross model, I can see my progression. Absolutely, we based some of this initial thinking on the Kubler-Ross model. Happy, great, thanks, Louise. Happy to help and support others as a mentor. So somewhere in this network space, Louise, you'll see the opportunity to volunteer as a mentor. If you can't find it, reach out to Zarina O'Donnell, who's one of the administrators on this in this space, and she will point you in the right direction. So thanks, Zarina, for setting that up. And thank you, Louise. You are, I know, one of those great people who's just keeping all of the wheels in motion within the NHS. And it's challenging times for all parts of the NHS, whether that's frontline or even thinking about things strategically. How logistically do we get all of this to work? It's a real challenging time. Okay, any other last questions? Anything I've missed? I'm just scrolling back. If you don't have any more questions, we'll stop this recording now. And if you're watching this later and have more questions, or anything I say inspires a question as you're watching this later, please put it in the chat underneath, and we will get back to you individually and give you whatever support we can at this time. Okay, doesn't look like there's any more questions right now. So all it remains for me to do is say, take really good care and look after those important people around you.